Layers of Fear, a game which, at least for me, was a game changer for jump scare based psychological horror games. There's a boatload of game lore scattered throughout, but the way it's scattered sometimes makes it hard to piece together what has happened. Underneath all the scares though, is a deep and very tragic story, and with most horror titles these days there are multiple endings, 3 in fact. So this story explanation will primarily be focused on what is considered to be the neutral ending. You ready? Then let's jump in. So let's start from the beginning. A quote from Oscar Wilde pops up on the screen. "Every portrait that is painted with feeling is a portrait of the artist, not of the sitter." This is a quote from the picture of Dorian Gray, which incidentally we can see lying around numerous times during the game. And it's quite obvious that the protagonist is based off of Dorian Gray. So we start off in a rather big house, but no one else seems to be home. We end up learning a lot about our character from the prologue. First thing that comes to mind? Obviously not short of money. To have a house like this with its big entrance, huge front door, and lots of leather-bound books, especially around what seems to be the 1920s, meant that this person has to have a lot of money and is quite well off. Another sign of their obvious wealth is that there seems to be a sign from an employee stating that they didn't go into the painter's workshop. Maybe this is a cleaner. Our protagonist seems to walk with a limp, and it's later on confirmed that he's missing part of his leg and uses a prosthetic, below-the-knee prosthesis. We can see from looking at an order form that the limp is due to the fact that the people who ordered the limb for him got the length wrong. The reason for this injury is likely down to the fact that he served in the war and has lost a leg. This is backed up by the medals we see around the house. He walks with a cane and has trouble sleeping due to his injury. We find a newspaper clipping which describes our character as an artist, a painter to be more precise. Some people even compared him to Van Eyck and Leonardo da Vinci, meaning he was a very gifted artist. A letter from his agent Thomas states that his phone is ringing off the hook for commissions for the painter. All is going well for this talented up-and-comer. It mentions in the same article that he has a beautiful fiancée, and that they are expecting. What is strange about this though, is that the names of the artist and the fiancée are both scratched out. It's later shown from a save the date and an engagement ring that they did in fact get married. On the table we see a letter from a pest control company. It seems that the painter has been requesting them to investigate a rodent infestation in the house multiple times, an infestation of which they could not actually find. They threaten legal action against the painter, but we don't know whether or not this escalated. We see a cupboard under the stairs which is covered in rat traps and a cupboard in the bathroom with rat poison inside. It does seem that this painter genuinely believes that there's a rat infestation in the home. The painter does seem to have a temper, detailed by a note found in one of the drawers where he seems to be apologising to his wife and saying that he loves her. In addition, we see a note from the wife to the painter, in which she says she's made him some food. She seems supportive, but also worried about him not sleeping because he's constantly working. They do seem, at least at first glance, to have a loving relationship. We find the grand piano upstairs on the landing with some sheet music on it. This gives us our first indication as to what the wife does for a living. She's a musician, and on further investigation, she is a very talented musician, as seen in a newspaper clipping from the bedroom. She is also described as being pretty, although another letter written by the wife to her unborn child describes the wife as having a difficult character. Both of their talents seem to work for one another, as a painter indicates at one point in the game that he took inspiration for painting while his wife played piano to him.
Why did you stop? That tune was perfect. Honey, please, just a little longer. At least until I finish painting this one part. Oh, don't make me beg.
The same newspaper clipping also seems to confirm the time in which the game takes place, around 1925. This is seen from the story to the right, which seems to detail the peace treaty between the US Senate and West Germany, which was signed on August 25th, 1925. Entering the office, we find our first sign that all is not well with our painter. He seems a little bit disturbed. This is indicated by a letter in the drawer from an editor for a children's book. The painter was commissioned to illustrate the book with Little Red Riding Hood, and what he came up with was, well, disturbing to say the least. We also get a glimpse that our painter is neglecting his wife, as we find a note saying, "I'll make it up to you," and the words, "you promise," scrawled across it in different handwriting. There is a child's bedroom too, so the child the couple were expecting has been born. There is no cot or crib, so that suggests that this child is at least 4 or 5 years of age. On entering the locked workshop, it's clear that the painter has a drinking problem, from the 2 chests full of booze behind his easel. A note from the wife indicates that they've stopped talking to each other directly, and she is now growing tired of leaving notes for one another. They do seem to be taking part in, or at least looking into, couples counselling. The marriage is in trouble and they're starting to argue a lot, and arguing loudly, judging by a note we find in the game in which their neighbours threaten to call the police over their late night shouting. So what has disrupted this seemingly strong and loving relationship in its tracks? We find a newspaper clipping in the bedroom upstairs referencing a fire which broke out in a department store, injuring a dozen people. It turns out that one of the department store fire victims was in fact the wife. She suffered pretty horrific burns as a result, and the husband tried really hard, sometimes aggressively, to get her the best treatment. A letter from a doctor states that the painter has been sending hateful and threatening letters to him and other doctors, who have said that they have done all they can to treat her injuries. Another letter from a doctor states that the painter has asked 16 of his colleagues for their medical opinions on the wife having, in his words, a freakish grin. The doctor says that due to the nature of her injuries, the wife cannot simply be fixed with one procedure. Essentially, these injuries prevented the wife from playing piano, which of course, as mentioned earlier, was a huge source of inspiration for the painter. With that gone, he struggled to get inspired, so spent huge amounts of his time in the workshop, neglecting his family. His wife writes a note stating that he keeps throwing gifts at their daughter instead of actually being there for her. The wife seems to be trying to play piano again despite her injuries. She mentions that she can smell alcohol on his breath, and she says the words, "Not this again." It's now clear that he's had a drinking problem in the past too. Things are unravelling fast. To make it worse, his work seems to be suffering, as the once popular painter's work is now being laughed out of galleries. It references his work being unacceptable, which suggests that it's become dark and disturbing. We find a list of symptoms for schizophrenia, in which the symptoms seem to be confirmed in what seems to be the wife's handwriting. It's suggested here and throughout the game that the painter has late onset schizophrenia. This gives us a plausible reason that the painter is convinced that there is a rat infestation in the house, despite the wife and the pest controllers stating that they haven't seen a single rat. We find details of their escalating issues when the painter accuses the wife of leaving scathing and hateful notes on his paintings. Later on, we find a note to himself which states that the sad part is that he even agrees with her regarding his work. The wife grows to hate her husband more and more, even getting to the point of praying death upon him. She mentions that she would kill him if she could, but she's not able. She is too weak. She mentions that it took her 6 months just to be able to hold a pen. We see that the painter has descended further into madness in regards to one of his horrific paintings called Babyface, or the Monster painting. This is a grotesque painting which this newspaper clipping completely rips apart. We find what seems to be a goodbye letter from the wife to the daughter. In this note, the wife details to the daughter how much of a monster the painter is, and basically apologises for what they put the daughter through. We eventually see a scene in the bathroom where the painter is shouting at his wife from outside the bathroom door, asking what's taking so long and to open the door. Sadly, she has killed herself.
What is taking so long? Open this fucking door! I need to go! Open up! Hell is... Oh, God. No. No. What have you done? No!
It goes from bad to worse for the painter, as social services take his daughter from him. The game references that the painter may have hit his daughter and severely neglected her, as when we picked up a bottle of whiskey, it appears that the daughter may have smashed the bottle, and the painter is apologising frantically right after.
Hey there, princess. What? Oh, this is Daddy's medicine. Whenever Daddy's hurting, this helps the hurt go away. No, don't touch that! Oh, God. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
His lawyer advises him to stay low, so to speak, as to not draw any unnecessary attention to himself and to basically stop acting insane. Then they actually have a chance of winning back custody of his daughter. This doesn't go well, as we see from a newspaper clipping that the painter got arrested for kidnapping his own daughter from the Children's Care Centre. Magnum opus is Latin for greatest work. It's essentially the greatest achievement of an artist or a painter. The basic and most brief synopsis of this game is that the painter collects 6 materials which are needed in order to create his greatest work. Now this is where it gets a little bit dark. The first material that he needs, skin. The second material is blood. Third, bones ground down to a powder. Fourth, a human hair for the brush. Fifth, a finger for those final touches. Finally, an eye to witness the artistic process. After collecting all of the pieces, the painting turns into a painting of the beautiful wife. Note that she's wearing black. But this painting then turns to the scarred wife who laughs at him and then transforms even further to resemble a rotting corpse. The painter then pushes the painting over and then takes the painting to a room filled with failed attempts at creating the magnum opus. The painter goes to his office and reads a letter he's written to his now deceased wife stating that he's sorry and that she is the love of his life. The painter's agent mentions in the letter that the wife set fire to her husband's old paintings, one in particular, The Lady in Black, which was a tribute to her. The agent also mentions that his new work isn't selling as well as his old work. The painter makes his way back to the workshop and there sits a blank canvas. He's just looping over and over again, slipping further and further into insanity, hell-bent on creating the lady in black again. The wife stated that she felt that she'd become repulsive, a monster in her husband's eyes. This is likely why he was so fixated on creating a painting of her from before the accident, so she can be beautiful to him once again. This is also likely why she set fire to his old paintings, namely the lady in black, as it was a painting of her from before the accident. Is this why the painter became so driven to paint the magnum opus, to replace the one that she'd destroyed? Did the painter just simply sit in his workshop staring at the painting of her until she'd essentially had enough? Now, one underlying question is, how did the painter get the body parts for the magnum opus? Well, it's heavily implied that he used parts of his deceased wife's body for the parts he needed for the magnum opus. Note that we don't actually find an obituary anywhere in the game that suggests that she was buried. So what happened to her body? The game does give us a clue as to what happened to her. She's still in the house. That's why the painting stands out as a corpse to him. Guilt. The painting is always a pure representation of how the painter sees her. That's why he cannot get the painting right. Also, this explains the 50 air fresheners he ordered and the fact that the air fresheners are hanging on a random wall that's been built behind a doorway. A corpse is there and the air fresheners are there to mask the stench. This is all but confirmed in the Inheritance DLC, when the daughter walks into the kitchen and says this.
Ugh, it reeks in here.
There is also the fact that the wall behind the door has been knocked down and the body seems to have been removed. Anyway, that's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. For now, take care and I'll see you in the next one.